What's happening, folks? Chandler Bolt here, and we are live. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you can hear me and see me, click the like button on this video and comment in the chat and let me know that you can hear me and see me and where you're tuning in from. This is the first time doing a YouTube live like this. So hopefully it's working, and I hope that you can hear me and see me, and just comment in the chat and let me know that all is working. Okay, perfect. Looks like people, I think, can hear us and see us. So we got a special YouTube live happening today. I'm joined with one of our top coaches at Self-Publishing School, Mr. Brett Hilker. And we're going to be talking about what it takes to write a nonfiction book. So to write it successfully in a book that sells copies, that grows your business if you have one. We're really going to be diving into the fundamentals. So with that said, let's dive in. Before we do, just so you know, we have a challenge happening. It's a 5-day challenge. It's called the Right Now Book Challenge. I will drop the link in the chat here. If you're someone who's thinking about writing a book, maybe you've made maybe you're frustrated with the progress that you're making so far. Maybe you've been dreaming about this book for a long time and you haven't gotten started, or maybe you just know that you need a kick in the pants to make some progress. I'd encourage you to join us on the Right Now Book Challenge. Okay, so this is actually at the time of recording this. If you're seeing this live, you're just in time. If you're seeing this afterwards, you might have missed it. But starting on Wednesday, April 20th, for 5 days, so Wednesday through Sunday, every single day, you're going to learn like cutting edge content, really, really good stuff, new content, but most importantly on how to get jump started with your book. Okay, and so that's the purpose of this challenge. You can go to self-publishingschool.com/challenge to register before we get started tomorrow. So I wanted to bring Brett on here. So Brett has the privilege and a fun job of helping people write and publish books. And so he gets to see just in the trenches, like what people are struggling with, what the commonalities of our authors who are successful. And I think it's going to be really, really practical. So Brett, welcome. Great to have you here. I'm
excited. Thanks for the invite. Pumped to help some aspiring authors here.
Yeah. So you just came right off of a coaching call right before this. Can you walk us through? So one of the first things when people start working with us is it starts with the clarity call, and then you're checking in with them to help make progress throughout the course of their book. What's the biggest trap that you see authors fall into that keeps them from getting started with their book?
I think people define what success means for a writing session to be too high. It's just like, it's like we have all of these grandiose ideas of how the process of writing the book is actually, going to be. And we romanticize the process, I think, a lot as new aspiring authors, when the reality is it's kind of messy. And it just means giving ourselves sometimes a bit of grace, checking our perfectionism at the door and just actually making bit by bit micro progress, even if it's kind of half baked and not fully there. Forward is forward in that way. And I think there's so many people that just get hung up with just trying to make it perfectly airtight every single moment of the book writing process. So it's checking
great.
That.
So you're saying, instead of trying to make everything perfect, and instead of saying, hey, I'm going to write 5,000 words on the first 2 days and setting these crazy goals, that instead we should just get started and have maybe micro goals where we can feel like we're winning.
Yeah, just those small wins add up so much faster, rather than trying to like keep our eyes at the top of the mountain and going like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And it's intimidating for me to even talk about right now, let alone doing it. So it's just trying to make it super approachable.
That's great. So one of the first things that, first interactions that you have with students is through what we call clarity call. This is where you help them get clear on the person, pain, and promise of their book, right? And so what is the thing that people get hung up on the most in that process? And what is the most frequent homework assignment that you give that's like, all right, we're getting started, we've got some clarity, now what's the very next step?
I think a lot of people get hung up with like trying to write to 8 billion people, and that's just a losing battle. So just really being able to drill down and focus on like exactly who we're talking to And a lot of the times the homework I give is like, and there's so many labels for it. I mean, like ideal reader, avatar, like there's a bajillion different labels that people put on it these days. I think about it through the lens of like, if you were going to sit down on a couch for an afternoon and the goal is to change that person's life, who would you want to have an intimate conversation with for that afternoon about this topic? And just making it very like relationally driven that way really, I think, sparks just different juices for authors when they approach their content in that way. And so that's the homework often, is like, who are you having an intimate conversation with? And that gets things moving a little bit quicker, I think.
That's so great. And guys, we're going to be talking about this and teaching on exactly this, the avatar piece, tomorrow, day one of the challenge. So if you haven't already, register for the Right Now Book Challenge. This is a free challenge. All you have to do is register and show up. So I dropped the link in the chat here. It's self-publishingschool.com/challenge. Head on over to that page. Go ahead and register. If you're registered for the challenge, comment in the chat and just say, I'll be there. If you're planning on joining us. And we're going to dive deeper into this avatar piece that Brett just talked about on day one. So about this time tomorrow. So Brett, you talked about how important it is. I love that prompt of sitting on the couch with someone talking about their book and making it personal, so that it's not an avatar as much as it is an ideal reader, which is someone that you actually know. So that's how we get started. Let's say I want to go commonalities of your most successful students. What are they? What's the, if you were to say, hey, there's 2 or 3 things that, hey, the students who show up, they implement, they get their book done, they do well. What are those couple things that those students have in common?
That's a good question. I would say the people that are nimble with just trying things to get progress done on the writing. Oftentimes, like, people get too stuck in their like scheduling ways of like, oh, perfect. Like, I'm going to write 20 minutes a day in the mornings, before my kids get up. And it's like, okay, cool. How did that go? It's not working. Well, try something else. Like, don't be married to that one thing. And so I think the people that do really well and continually carry momentum through the writing, the production, the marketing, and beyond are people that are just light on their feet and nimble and are just okay, like trying stuff and maybe bumping into a dead end street and then just like trying something new just to keep things going. And then through that process, you just make progress and you keep things carried forward. So it's that, and then just being able to not let questions and moments of lack of clarity blow up into this big thing. And so oftentimes at self-publishing school with students, that just means utilizing the resources at their disposal. So coaching calls like myself, office hours, group coaching calls, the community, obviously all of our content online, like all of that stuff is there to help disarm these moments of question or lack of clarity. And that often just doesn't lead to a massive detour. It just means to like a quick little like answer to a question to keep things moving.
Yeah.
So both of those.
Nice. So take the very next step and then stay nimble. Do more of what's working, less of what's not, and adjust throughout the process. Flip side, Brett, what's the commonality of the students who aren't successful? Like, is there 1 or 2 things that you notice there that people who are watching or listening to this can say, oh, I need to avoid those 1 or 2 things to make sure that I don't fall off and lose momentum with my book?
I think it's a combination of what I mentioned before of like kind of, they're not, they're kind of under chunking things. So it's just like, my goal is like 5,000 words. It's like, no, you got to like really get things granular in that way of like, my goal today is to write 50 words. Like forward is forward that way. So just that. So people that are often taking a long time on their book or they fall off the wagon completely, often it's just because they were just getting in their own way, mostly with mindset. Like oftentimes there's great writers out there, but it's just, okay, you've got the skill set. It's like, you're just letting your own perfectionism get in your own way. And then on top of that, it's often just a lot of like comparison of others of like, oh, well, that writer did it this way, or this writer did it this way. This whole process is kind of individualized to a degree. Like everyone kind of does it slightly differently. There's like these really big milestones we take people through, but in between those dots, everyone takes their own slightly unique way. And so being able to perfectly say, oh, well, this person did it this way, this is how I exactly have to do it. Maybe, but like, don't be married to that. Like, give yourself that opportunity to just make progress regardless of how it feels that getting done, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
that's so great. And Connie in Tanzania, great to have you here. Arshan, good to have you here. Julia, Victoria, great to have everyone here who's watching live. So Brett, where would you say for those people who kind of fall off and start losing progress, it's, the ideal length of a book is somewhere between 15 to 60,000 words. Is there a commonality that you've seen at all? Is it like at word 5? Is it at word 5,000? Is it, halfway? The people who really struggle and don't get their rough draft done, have you seen any commonalities on where in that process they kind of tend to bog down?
I think there's a hang up between the translation between the outlining stage and making initial progress on the draft. And I think oftentimes is because people haven't got granular and specific enough with their outline. And so that just means like, okay, talk about this thing. And then it's just so open-ended, you can go 1,000 different directions. And then it becomes this kind of paralysis by analysis once you're in the moment, actually starting to quote unquote, write the book. And so there's those kind of moments of lack of clarity between that transition point. And then I think, throughout different points of the process, I don't know if it's like an exact thing for everybody, but there's often points of the process where people start to get hung up with like comparison, imposter syndrome, and all of that kind of stuff. And that's usually somewhere about kind of halfway, 2/3, kind of plus minus. So it's usually both of those two things, and they're caused by different, one's more of like a mechanical reason, one's more mindset, but both pretty common.
I love that you differentiate those two because both are important. And oftentimes we overemphasize one or the other, right? Yeah. If I just have this mechanical thing, maybe then I can make progress. Or if I just have the right mindset, then words are just going to magically flow through my fingertips. But you need both. And what you're kind of referencing to, and I know this probably won't show up too well on the screen here. We kind of break this down into 8 milestones. And so what Brett's talking about is going from milestone 2 to milestone 3, right? Which is a pretty big leap, going from your outline to your rough draft. I think it's probably the biggest leap in this whole journey, right? But you have to get started, and then you have to make consistent progress to be able to take that step. And so it sounds like some people get bogged down in the beginning, and then some people get bogged down after they're in the process. So guys, if you haven't already, I would encourage you to join us for our Right Now book challenge. It's happening in the next 5 days. That's the entire purpose of this challenge, is saying, hey, how do we get clear on your ideal reader, but then also how do we create a mind map? How do we create an outline? And then how do we leave with some words done on your book so that you're not feeling like I've got to take this big leap from outline to first words written, and so that you can get your rough draft done faster. And so if you haven't already registered, go ahead and register at self-publishingschool.com/challenge. Comment in the chat. I'll be there. If you're going to be at the challenge, we'd love to see you there. Parting question that I have for you, Brett, would be, so knowing what you know now, you've seen hundreds of students go through this process, probably narrowing in on 1,000 plus. And you've done, at this point, probably over 1,000 coaching calls. What would be your parting piece of advice for someone who hasn't gotten their rough draft finished yet, knowing what you know now?
Somebody that hasn't got their rough draft finished yet is probably trying to talk to too many people at the same time. And so it's just really revisiting the avatar conversation of going like, who is it that I'm talking to, and trying to give like life-changing amount of value to. So revisiting that, and then often revisiting the outline in that way, and just making sure, like, do I know exactly what stories I'm going to tell? Do I know exactly what step-by-steps I'm giving? And oftentimes doing that work sparks new creative ideas, maybe other books, maybe other things you can add on to the current rough draft. But oftentimes when we hit that wall, it's just because of lack of clarity often. And so it's just revisiting that. And then that often kind of cracks the dam loose to finish it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, guys, I hope this was helpful and practical. No matter where you're at in your journey, that you found this live session helpful. And if you found this helpful, I'll say this challenge is going to be even more helpful to make progress on your book. So register for the challenge if you haven't already. self-publishingschool.com/challenge. Mr. Brett Hilker, you're the man. Thank you for joining
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. See you guys soon.